أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين الصلاة والسلام على رسوله سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Lord and sustainer of the worlds. Abundance of salutations be upon the last and final messenger, Sayyidina Maulana Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Salutations be upon his noble purified household, his companions, and upon the beloved friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Most respected mashayikh, ulama, elders, brothers, sisters, children in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, it's indeed by the grace and favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are gathered here today, Alhamdulillah, to remember and commemorate the Shuhada of Karbala. We make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept us in His noble court and make this as a form of our shafa on the day of Qiyamah. So Alhamdulillah, when it comes to the aspect of the Ahlul Bayt and the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, on the onset, I just want to tell you, because I'm not going to go backward and forward, that the subject matter and the research that and the information that has been extracted, it has been extracted from the a few kitabs, and one of the kitabs are Tariq al-Tabari of Imam Tabari, Shawaid al-Nubuha of Sheikh Abdul Rahman Jami, Tariq al-Khulafa of Imam Jalaluddin Suyuti, and Khasais al-Kubra also of Imam Jalaluddin Suyuti. So just to clear that these are all Imams of the Ahlul Sunnah. So with our narrations, nobody must think that all of a sudden we have become Shia. Right? Because unfortunately this has become a problem in our society today, that the moment we start talking about the Ahlul Bayt and speaking about the excellences, people all of a sudden have this mindset that these people are going towards something which is not correct. So I just want to clear this on the onset, that all the references are all the references of the Imams of the Ahlul Sunnah. So Alhamdulillah, when it comes to the importance of the love of the Ahlul Bayt, we find that there's an incident that had taken place, and the Sahaba, the great companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, well, one day they were seated and they were planning and they were thinking as to everything that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us. He gave us Iman, gave us Namaz, gave us the Deen, He gave us guidance, He gave us everything. How do we thank Him for that? How do we show thanks to Him for that? So they were discussing and they said, okay, we'll give Him some gifts, we'll present Him with some presents, we'll do all this. So as the Sahaba were discussing this, revelation came. Revelation came, and the ayah 23 of Surah Ash-Shu'ara, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers the companions of the Prophet. Who gives the answer? Allah gives the answer to the Sahaba who want to show thanks to the Prophet ﷺ for all that he has given us. So the ayah that was revealed at that time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the Prophet ﷺ, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا مَوَدَّةً فِي الْقُرْبَى. Then, O my beloved Habib, inform them that you ask nothing in return for all that you have done, except that they love your family. Clear cut. This is not our command. This is a command Allah is giving Rasulullah to inform the Sahaba and that for all of us, that Rasulullah asks nothing in recompense for everything that He has given us, except that you love His family. So then we come, fast forward, right? Then we see an incident taking place at Ghadir Khumm on the 18th of Zil Hajj. Rasulullah completes his Hajj and he's on his way back to Medina Munawwara. He comes to a place called Ghadir Khumm, which is a four-way stop. And at this four-way stop, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wishes to address the Ummah. Because the four-way stop is companions who have come from Hajj. They are all going to go back to their own places. Whichever place they came from, Yemen, Syria, whichever, and the four ways was a parting way. So here, Rasulullah wanted to address the Ummah. So, stones were gathered and the saddle of a camel was put on, and Rasulullah addressed the Ummah. So the gist of this narration is, Rasulullah is now addressing the Ummah for the final time. And what he tells them, he tells them, and this is the gist of, it's a long narration, there are over 300 narrators to this particular narration. 300 narrators. And graded authentic. So what Rasulullah tells them? He says that very soon there is going to be a call made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I will answer that call. Meaning that a time for his passing away is near, and he's going to answer that call and he's going to leave this physical world. Then Rasulullah says, however, I leave behind for you two weighty things. If you hold on to them, you will never go astray. I leave behind the Kitab of Allah, the Quran, and second, I leave my Ahlul Bayt. Then Rasulullah says, beware how you deal with my Ahlul Bayt. Beware how you deal with my Ahlul Bayt. Beware how you deal with my Ahlul Bayt. For verily these two will not separate from each other until they meet me at Hawz Kausar. Now, can there be anything more clear than that? 3 times, one time Rasulullah is telling you about the Quran, because he knows nobody will object to the Quran. 3 times he's telling you about his Ahlul Bayt. And thereafter he picked up the hand of Mawla Ali Karbala and then he asked the Ummah a question. And am I not the protector of the Ummah? All of them said yes. Then Rasulullah said, Allah is my protector. And for whoever I am the master, Ali is his master. Oh Allah, love the one who loves Ali and be the enemy of the one who is the enemy of Ali. So this was the declaration that was made at Ghadir Khumm. So, the importance of the Ahlul Bayt. So Sayyidina Hazrat Usama bin Zayd radiallahu ta'ala said that one evening he came to the Prophet ﷺ for some work. And he found that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was outside the house. But he had his jubbah on, and there was something that was like hanging inside, but he couldn't see what was inside. So he asked the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, what are you carrying inside your jubbah, your cloak? So they say when Rasulullah opened his jubbah, on one side Imam Hassan was hanging, and on the other side Imam Hussein was hanging. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, these are my 2 sons and grandsons. Oh Allah, I love these 2. You also love them. And whoever loves them, Ya Allah, you also love them. Right? Then they say one day, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala, one day they were wrestling. They were playing, they were wrestling. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is telling Sayyidina Imam Hassan, oh Imam Hassan, grab hold of Hussein. Grab him. So Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra is looking at this, and she tells the Prophet ﷺ that, Ya Rasulullah, I find it strange that you are supporting the bigger one instead of supporting the younger one. So Rasulullah says, oh Fatima, what must I do when Jibreel is supporting Hussein? What must I do when Jibreel is supporting Hussein? Then Sayyidina Abu Hurairah reports that the Prophet ﷺ said regarding Hassan and Hussein, that whoever loves these 2 has loved me, and whoever has hatred, enemy towards these 2 has hatred towards me. Then they say Sayyidina Salman al-Farsi radiallahu ta'ala, he said, he heard the Prophet ﷺ say, Hassan and Hussein are my sons. Whoever loves them loves me. Whoever loves me loves Allah. And whoever loves Allah is entered into paradise. And whoever has hatred for them has hatred for me. And whoever has hatred for me has hatred for Allah. And whoever has hatred for Allah is entered into Jahannam. Very clear. Then there's a narration that they say that one day Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was seated in an assembly, and a Bedouin brought a fawn. What a fawn is? It's a baby deer. So Rasulullah brought this fawn, a Bedouin brought this fawn for Rasulullah, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, I'm presenting this baby deer as a gift to you. So Rasulullah accepted the baby deer, and Imam Hassan was seated there. So Rasulullah gave the baby deer to Imam Hassan. So what happens is Imam Hassan radiallahu ta'ala goes home with this deer, and when he goes home with this deer, Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala asks his brother, Imam Hassan, then tell me where you got this deer from. So Imam Hassan said that our beloved grandfather gave this deer as a present to him. So what Imam Hussein does? Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala then runs to Masjidul Nabawi, and he goes by his grandfather and asks Prophet, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you gave Hassan a deer, baby deer, where is my one? So Rasulullah tries to calm him down, and he tells him that a Bedouin just brought this one. I don't have another one. Now they say Imam Hussein started, asking over and over, Ya Rasulullah. Then they say, according to the narrative, Abdul Rahman Jami is giving this narrative, and he says, Imam Hussein was about to cry. A tear was about to come from his eye when the mother deer brought another baby in her mouth and came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said to the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, the Bedouin took my one child and brought it to you. He said, but this baby I'm bringing to you because it's a command from Allah. Take this and give it to Hussein, because if one drop of tear falls from his eyes, the arsh of Allah will shake. Now we ask ourselves, this is the Ahlul Bayt that we are speaking about. Then, just one more narration to tell you the importance of these personalities. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is seated with his own son, Ibrahim, on one lap, and Imam Hussein on the other lap. Rasulullah's own son on one lap, and Imam Hussein on the other lap. Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam comes, and he informs the Prophet sallam that, Ya Rasulullah, you loved him? Rasulullah says, yes. He says, but it is the command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that between your own son and Hussein, one has to leave this world. Between your own son, Ibrahim, and your grandson, one has to leave this world. Make your choice. Now tell me, this is a choice that is given to the Prophet ﷺ. Rasulullah looks at his own son, and he looks at his grandson, and then Rasulullah said that I make the choice that Allah must take my own son. Allah must take my own son. And in the hands of Rasulullah, Ibrahim passes away. In the hands of the Prophet, Ibrahim passes away. Then they asked the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, why did you choose Ibrahim over Hussein? Rasulullah says, if Hussein passed away, he said Fatima will be hurt, Ali will be hurt, and I will be hurt. He said, I can't see Fatima and Ali also hurt. So I rather choose, let me only feel the pain. Therefore I chose Allah take my own son. And thereafter, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to see Imam Hussein playing, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to say, this is my son for whom I sacrificed my own son. This is Imam Hussein we're talking about. Now, Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala, what do we see? We only see about his life at the age of 55. And that is in Karbala. Now, we need to understand that this personality had to be somebody very, very huge and very, very big for what had transpired in Karbala. It can't be somebody of an ordinary nature, because it had to be something whereby he had to have qualities himself that would have affected the entire humanity. So when we look, for example, in the character of Sayyidina Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala, Khaja Raisullah's Banda Nawaz, rahmatullahi ta'ala, one of the very great awliya of the Chishtiya Silsila was the Khalifa of Khaja Nasiruddin Chirag Dehlavi, rahmatullahi ta'ala. So in his kitab, Al-Jawahir al-Kalam, he narrates an incident. And it tells you about the personality of Imam Hussein, radiallahu ta'ala. So he says that one day, Khaja Hassan al-Basri, radiallahu ta'ala, was in the haram of the Kaaba, and he was seated. And he could hear a person who was on the roof of the Kaaba. And the person on the roof of the Kaaba was making dua the entire night, and crying and weeping in the court of Allah, that, oh Allah, will my eyes burn in Jahannam? Oh Allah, will my hands burn in Jahannam? Oh Allah, will my feet burn in Jahannam? Oh Allah, I seek forgiveness from you, and the entire night is making tawbah and istighfar. Khaja Hassan al-Basri says, this man is crying so much, let him at least have some hope in the mercy of Allah. So I will wait for him to come down from the Kaaba, and I'll go and give him some nasihat and tell him, Baba, you're crying so much, at least have some hope in Allah's mercy. So they say just before Salatul Fajr, a ladder is placed against the Kaaba. And this man comes down from the Kaaba about to leave the haram. So Khaja Hassan al-Basri runs behind him and he calls him, excuse me, excuse me. So they say when the person turns around and Khaja Hassan al-Basri sees his face, Khaja Hassan al-Basri falls at his feet, because that person is none other than Imam Hussein. Is none other than Imam Hussein. So Khaja Hassan al-Basri asked him, then, oh great Imam, I heard you the entire night crying in the court of Allah. Is it not sufficient that your mother is Sayyidah Fatima Zahra? Is it not sufficient that your father is Mawla Ali? Is it not sufficient that your grandfather is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that you are crying so much? You know what Imam Hussein said? He said, since the day my grandfather told my mother, oh Fatima, do not depend on your father on the day of Qiyamah, do some good amal and come. He says, we the Ahlul Bayt do not depend on our family line. We do good deeds to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the quality of Sayyidina Imam Hussein. One day Sayyidina Imam Hassan and Sayyidina Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala with their cousin, Sayyidina Abdullah bin Jafar radiallahu ta'ala, they are traveling. They come to a place whereby they are a bit hungry. So there's an old woman in this one little hut. So they go to her and they ask her, you know, we are a bit hungry. Is there any food that you have that you can cook a meal for us? So the old lady said, we are poor. The only thing I have one small goat. I'll slaughter this goat and I'll feed you your people your meal. So the lady slaughters the goat and she feeds Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein and Sayyidina Abdullah bin Jafar. So after they ate the meal, the three informed her that, you know, anytime you come to Medina Munawwara and you have any need, please don't ever feel shy to come and ask of us. But the lady doesn't know who they are. The lady doesn't know who they are. So what happens is, the lady's husband then comes home in the evening and he asks the wife, do you have anything for us to eat? So she says, no, there were three strangers came, and whatever little I had, that little goat, I sacrificed and I gave it to them. Husband got upset and he said, three strangers came and you just gave the meal away? So that was the story. So what happened is, after some time, this family went into extreme poverty. So they made hijrah from wherever they went, and they thought they'll go to Medina Munawwara and they'll see whatever they can get. So as this old lady was walking through the streets of Medina Munawwara, Imam Hassan sees her and he goes up to her and he asks her, do you recognize me? Says, no. She says, I'm the person whom you gave a meal. I see you in Medina Munawwara. So she says, yes, you know, we are in poverty and we're seeking some help. So Imam Hassan radiallahu ta'ala, as a hadiyah, gives her 1,000 goats. 1,000 goats. So he told her, go to my brother Hussein also. Inshallah, he'll give you something else. So they go to Hussein, Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein asked her, tell me, how much did my brother give? He said, no, your brother gave 1,000 votes. So he said, I'm giving 2,000. So he gave 2,000 votes. So Imam Hussein then said, don't forget, go to Abdullah ibn Jafar. Inshallah, he'll give you something. So he asked, so when they went there, so he asked, tell me what Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein gave. So he says, no, Imam Hassan gave 1,000, Imam Hussein gave 2,000. So he says, okay, I'm giving 3,000. So altogether, she got 6,000 votes. And now she's going with this goats and her husband sees her. Husband asked her, tell me something, where did you get all this wealth from? You know what the reply of the lady was? She says, this is the generosity of that family who I only gave one goat. This is the generosity of the family for whom I gave one goat. Now, the question remains, what went wrong? Because you must understand that the event of Karbala was a build-up of events. It was not just Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala woke up one day and he decided that, you know, I'm going to go to Karbala and this is going to be a so-called an uprising against Yazid. We need to see also in the background there were a lot of other things that transpired. One of the personalities that is hardly spoken about is Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu ta'ala. Now, just to tell you that Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu ta'ala, alhamdulillah, was one of those great personalities that brought about peace in the ummah. Because he saw so much of bloodshed that people were dying. And he brought about peace in the ummah. And he gave over his khilafat to Amir Muawiyah. But the part that we don't hear about is that he gave it on condition. Not just that, he says, right, take it. There was a condition that was given. And one of the conditions that was given, there were three conditions. One of the conditions was that the cursing of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala must stop on the minbars. By the way, many people don't know this. In Tariq al-Tabari, it's recorded that for 80 years, Mawla Ali Karbala was insulted during the Jummah khutbah. Imam Hassan radiallahu ta'ala requested that this cursing of his father must stop on the minbar. The second thing he requested was that the followers of Mawla Ali Karbala must be treated with respect. And the third thing he requested was at the end of the era of Amir Muawiyah, the Khilafat must be returned back to the household of the Ahlul Bayt. It must come back to Imam Hassan, and in the event if anything happened to Imam Hassan, it must go to Imam Hussein. Conditions which were broken. Now, when you look at Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu ta'ala, Imam Hassan radiallahu ta'ala left Kufa, he comes and he settles in Medina Munawwara. In Medina Munawwara, Imam Hassan radiallahu ta'ala is poisoned. Now, do you know how many times he was poisoned? Imam Hassan was poisoned 3 times. The first time poison was put in honey, and Imam Hassan ate from that honey and he got very ill. They say he got so ill that the color of his skin began to change color. What Imam Hassan does? Imam Hassan, in that condition, he goes to the Roza Mubarak of his grandfather and he rubs himself against the Qabr Mubarak of Rasulullah. And he is given shifa. The second time, they place poison in Khajur. Second time given to Imam Hassan. When they give this poison to Imam Hassan, the second time again he gets seriously ill. Second time again he goes to the Rawza Mubarak of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, rubs his body against the Qabr Mubarak and is given shifa. The third time they put poison in his wuzu water. Imam Hassan's wuzu water. They say the effect of this poison was so serious that when Imam Hussein made wudu, Imam Hassan, made wudu, when he gargled his mouth and the water went down his throat, Imam Hassan vomited. Imam Hassan's liver came out in 7 pieces. Imam Hassan's liver came out in 7 pieces. He got ill, he requested for Imam Hussein to come. When Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala came and he saw his brother in this condition, Imam Hassan radiallahu ta'ala said to his brother that it doesn't seem that now I'm going to survive. So he said that I have a request from you. He said that if anything happens to me, I want you to go to Sayyidah Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu ta'ala as my wish is to be buried next to Rasulullah. Imam Hassan's wish was to be buried next to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And then he said, if in the event the Banu Umayyah gave problem not to allow me to be buried there, then take my janaza and bury me next to my mother in Jannatul Baqi. Now who's asking? Rasulullah's grandson is asking to be buried next to his grandfather. Sayyidah Aisha Siddiqa agreed. She said, how can we refuse the grandson of Rasulullah to be buried here? But when Imam Hassan made parda, when Imam Hussein went back, Marwan bin Hakam, who was the governor of Medina Munawwara, he said, at no cost will we allow Imam Hassan to be buried next to his grandfather. I'm not sure whether you've ever heard this history before, but this is our history. This is our history. Imam Hassan was refused to be buried next to his grandfather's qabr Muharram. And Imam Hassan's janaza then had to be taken while bows and arrows were pointed to his janaza, and he was buried in Jannatul Baqi. Now all this, Imam Hussein is witnessing and he's seeing. And here you come to the era where Yazid is appointed as the ruler over the Muslim Ummah. Right? So, you know, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of personalities who played a great role in this event of Karbala. And one of the personalities we find is Sayyidina Imam Muslim bin Aqil, radiallahu ta'ala, right? Where we find that the people of Kufa wrote over 150 letters to Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala, by the way, was in Medina Munawwara. And Yazid had sent the command to Marwan bin Hakam that you need to take the oath of allegiance of Imam Hussein. He has to accept me as the leader. Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala explained and said that a person like me, you can't take an oath of allegiance in secret. A person like me, you need to take it in public. However, that evening, Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala went and made his salam at the Roza Mubarak, and then Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala had a vision where the Prophet ﷺ told him that very soon he is going to be made shaheed in Karbala. And Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala then leaves from Medina Munawwara and he comes to Makkatul Mukarramah. In Makkatul Mukarramah, while he was settled there, the people of Kufa sent over 150 letters requesting Imam Hussein to come to Kufa, and they were to give him his support. But what Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala did, he sent Imam Muslim bin Aqil, who was his cousin, to go and see what the situation in Kufa is. When Imam Muslim bin Aqil came to Kufa, they say over 40,000 people pledged support to Imam Hussein. Over 40,000 people. But when Yazid came to know what was going on, he made sure he replaced the governor of Kufa, and he sent Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, who was a tyrant, to go to Kufa and suppress whatever is happening in Kufa. I'm just bringing this thing in a very short form for you to understand what was going on in Karbala. So, what happens is, when Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad was entering into Kufa, he disguised himself as an Arab to see what is the sentiment of the people of Kufa. Are they really looking forward to Imam Hussein coming? So what happened was, when the people saw Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad coming, dressed in an Arab garb, they thought Imam Hussein is coming. So the people of Kufa ran out to welcome him. that, oh, grandson of the Prophet, welcome, welcome. Only to find out later that the biggest tyrant of the Umayyads has come to Kufa. There, in Kufa, then Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad made a search for Imam Muslim bin Aqil. Right? It's a long story. And Imam Muslim bin Aqil radiallahu ta'ala is in Kufa with his two children. Imam Muslim bin Aqil rahmatullahi ta'ala his two children. Right? One whose name is Muhammad, who's 8 years old, and the other whose name is Ibrahim, who's 6 years old. Two children. What they do, they capture Imam Muslim bin Aqil. Imam Muslim bin Aqil is taken on the government buildings. He is beheaded. His head and his body is thrown down in the streets of Kufa. Right? They drag Imam Muslim bin Aqil radiallahu ta'ala's body through the city of Kufa. So what has happened? The people all of a sudden, they start moving away from supporting Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala. The two children of Imam Muslim bin Aqil, Muhammad and Ibrahim, are left alone in Kufa. They are running in the streets of Kufa without anybody to help them. Right? Then there is a person by the name of Qazi Shurey who took them in, because understanding this is Ahlul Bayt. But then Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad makes an announcement. He says that Muslim bin Aqil has been killed, but it seems that his two children are still running around here in Kufa. Reward is great, whoever captures these two children and brings them to us. So what happens is, Qazi Shurey decides that somehow or the other, we need to get these children out. So what they do, in the middle of the night, he tries to put Muhammad and Ibrahim, 8 and 6 years old, into a caravan that is going to Medina Munawwara. But what happens? As these children are running towards the caravan leaves them and goes away. The two children now don't know what to do. However, the children are captured. The children are captured, the children are taken to jail. When they are put in jail, the person who was the jailer, whose name was Mashkoor, he was a lover of the Ahlul Bayt. What he did? He released the two children. He told them, you must go away to a place called Qudsiya. They, inshallah, go to a governor who is my brother, and he'll take care of you. These children, in the middle of the night, they left Kufa. They got lost, and they landed back in Kufa. So what happens is, they are crying. They're holding each other, don't know what to do. They come to a place where there's a spring and a little tree. There's one lady who had come there to get water. She sees these two children, and she asks these two children, who are you? And the children explain that they are Muslim bin Aqil's children. So the lady takes Imam Muslim bin Aqil's children to the house of a master. The lady who was the owner of this house was also a lover of the Ahlul Bayt. She took the two children and she kept them in a special room in the house. Fed them, gave them water, gave everything, kept them safe. The husband, whose name was Haris, he comes home late at night, tired. So the wife asked the husband, tell me, where were you? Whole night you're coming so late. The husband replies that the two children of Muslim bin Aqil are here in Kufa, and Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad has given a big reward. Whole day, I'm out in Kufa looking for these two children. Whole day, I'm out looking for these two children. The lady didn't know what to do. So she eased off her children. Her husband said, you know, what you want to do, man? These are Ahlul Bayt. Don't go after the money. Understand this is about your iman. Not interested. That night, these two children have a dream. What they dream? They dream of Rasulullah. Muhammad and Ibrahim, 6 and 8 years old. They dream of the Prophet ﷺ. Rasulullah in the dream with Mawla Ali, Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra, their father Imam Muslim bin Aqil, and Sayyidina Imam Hassan. So Rasulullah is looking at Imam Muslim bin Aqil, and he's telling Imam Muslim bin Aqil, who had been made shaheed the day prior, that, oh Muslim, you have come to us, but You have left your 2 children. So Imam Muslim bin Aqil tells the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, my 2 children are not far. They're just few steps away, coming to us. And by the time the sun sets tomorrow, they will be joining us. They will be joining us. So what happens is the 2 children get up. Both of them get up. And they begin to cry. They're holding each other, the 2 brothers, 6 and 8 years old, crying. And then they're telling to each other that it seems our time for martyrdom has come. While they were crying, hardest years, children crying in the room. They asked his wife, who is this? Wife says, no, it's our neighbor's children. He says, no, this crying is coming from our house. So when he goes, he finds Muhammad and Ibrahim in the room. He hits them, slaps them. He tells them that whole day I've been out looking for you. You people are in my own house. They say he hits them to such a level that he got tired. Then he took their zulf. Imam Muhammad and Ibrahim, he took their zulf, he tied it together. And he carried the children like a sack. And he took them to the Euphrates. And there at the Euphrates, he hit them again. And then he beheaded the 2 children. Beheaded the 2 children, what he does? He throws both their bodies in the Euphrates. And he carries their head. And he takes it back to Kufa, thinking that he's going to get a reward. So when he comes back to Kufa, and he goes to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad asks him, what have you brought? He says, no, I brought the heads of the 2 children of Muslim bin Aqil. Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad got so angry. He said, I informed Yazid that I'm going to be sending these 2 children alive to Damascus. You went and killed them. Now you are going to face the same punishment. You're going to be beheaded. So he called one of the persons of the court and he said, take these 2 heads and go to the Euphrates and take this man and behead him where he killed these 2 children. So they took Haris, beheaded him, and then they took the 2 heads of Imam Muhammad and Ibrahim and he threw it in the river. They say the moment they took the 2 heads and they threw it in the river, the 2 headless bodies came up. Imam Muhammad and Ibrahim, the 2 bodies came up. Their heads joined back to each other. This is one of the karamats of the Ahlul Bayt. Their heads joined back together. And the person who put their heads back in the water took both the bodies out and buried them on the Euphrates. And people who go today, you go to the mazar of Sayyidina Muhammad and Ibrahim. But you know, the aspect what I want to bring about is that what we fail to realize is what were the ages of these people? What were the ages of these people? Here we see Muhammad and Ibrahim, 6 and 8 years old, right? Then we find, for example, Sayyidina Qasim, now in Karbala. Sayyidina Qasim radiallahu ta'ala, who is the son of Imam Hassan. How old is he? 19 years old. 19 years old. He comes to Imam Hussein and he tells Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala that, oh my uncle, this is the son of Imam Hassan. He says, oh my uncle, I wish to go and sacrifice myself for you. So Imam Hussein tells him, how can I allow you? So Imam Qasim says to his uncle, he says that my father, Imam Hassan, wrote a taweez for me. And he tied it to my hand. And he gave me an advice. And he told me, oh Qasim, when a day comes, when you find yourself in a most difficult position, open the taweez and read what is inside. So he says, oh my uncle, there can't be more a difficult day than today. So I opened the taweez. And inside it was written, my father wrote, that, oh Qasim, a day will come when you will be with your uncle in Karbala. Make sure that you give your life before Imam Hussein sends Ali Akbar into the battle. Make sure you go and give your life before Ali Akbar gives his life. So he said, so Imam Qasim is telling his uncle, he says that if I don't do this, how am I going to face my father on the day of Qiyamah? How am I going to face my father on the day of Qiyamah? Now, Imam Qasim is only 19 years old. But they say that he was so beautiful, so handsome, that on the day of Karbala when he came out of the tent, it seemed as if the full moon came out of the tent. Imam Qasim, right? Then they say that, the people feared him. That when they never even challenged him on a one-on-one combat. From far, they were throwing spears at him. They were so scared to come to him. There was a wrestler who was famous in Damascus, whose name was Arzak. So when they told him, why you such a famous wrestler, why don't you go and fight with Sayyidina Qasim? So you know what Arzak said? He says, for me to fight a child is an insult. For me to fight a child is an insult. You know what they told him? He says, this is not an ordinary. For me to fight a child is an insult. You know what they told him? He says, this is not an ordinary child. This is the grandson of the Lion of Allah. This is the grandson of Sher Khuda. Don't look at him as a small boy. So he said, never mind, I'll send my 4 sons. 4 sons. Sayyidina Qasim with one stroke killed him. Finally, Arzak was so scared that he didn't want to come close to Imam Qasim. And when Imam Qasim told him, you're such a big wrestler, and you're finding yourself, your knees rattling to come and fight with me, they say the moment Arzak came forward, Imam Qasim made him, killed him. But what had transpired? Thirst got the better of him. And every time, because of his thirst, Imam Qasim radiallahu ta'ala fell. And when he fell, they say that they threw a spear at him. And with the spear going through his body, Imam Qasim radiallahu ta'ala was mentioned. 19 years old. The next from the Ahlul Bayt to go was Aun and Muhammad. How old were they? Aun was 13 years old and Muhammad was 15 years old. You know who they were? They were the sons of Sayyidah Zainab. Sayyidah, the sister of Imam Hussein. Sayyidah Zainab radiallahu ta'ala, Aun and Muhammad comes to Imam Hussein and they ask him that, oh my uncle, send us into the battle. Imam Hussein says, how am I going to face my sister if I want to send you out? They says, no, but this is the instruction of my mother. And Sayyidah Zainab was standing by the entrance of the tent. And she tells Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala that I am not going to accept this humble gift that I'm presenting in your court. He says, what am I going to answer my mother on the day of Qiyamah when she's going to ask me, oh Zainab, when all the others were giving their lives as gifts, what did you give to your brother Hussein? So he says, I'm presenting my 2 sons, Aun and Muhammad. Aun and Muhammad go out, and Aun and Muhammad also mention it. Then you find Sayyidina Ali Akbar. How old was he? 18 years old. 18 years old, the son of Imam Hussein. Sayyidina Ali Akbar radiallahu ta'ala, you know what was his speciality? From head to foot, he was a copy of the Prophet ﷺ. He resembled Rasulullah. They say that on that day when he went out into battle, the turban of Mawla Ali Karbala Kareem, Imam Hussein tied it on his head. Imam Hussein tied his belt. Imam Hussein put on the armor for him. And Imam Hussein sent him out. They say that when Imam Sayyidina Ali Akbar radiallahu ta'ala went out, they say the hearts of these people were so hard that even seeing a resemblance of Rasulullah in front of you, it made no difference to them. Right? Imam Sayyidina Ali Akbar radiallahu ta'ala, how was he made shaheed? They say they had a javelin. They threw a javelin. It entered his body from one end and it came out to the other. You know what they did? They broke it inside his body. Sayyidina Ali Akbar, they broke it inside his body. Then they say that when Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala, when he ran, because the son is calling for his father. When Imam Hussein ran, and when he tried to pull that piece of that spear out from the body of Sayyidina Ali Akbar, they say that when he was holding that spear to pull it out, according to the narrative, that they say Imam Hussein, he turned towards Najaf and he addresses his father, Mawla Ali. He says, "Oh my dear father, oh Ali." He says, "You are the one who with one hand pulled out the door of Khaybar, whereby 70 people couldn't even pick up the door." He says, "Oh my father, that was easy. Try pulling out this spear from the heart of my son Akbar." They say that when they pull that spear out, that blood, pulled onto the face of Imam Hussein. And Sayyidina Ali Akbar was mentioning. Now the question I want to ask you, brothers and sisters in Islam, youth, what role is our youth playing today? This we see that the forerunners in Karbala, the people who gave their lives first, were all youth. What was Imam Hussein showing us? Was it not possible for Imam Hussein to have gone first? Why did he allow the youngsters, own Muhammad, Ali Akbar, his own little baby, Ali Azhar, 6 months old? What are they trying to show us? This is something where we need to take a lesson. Is that we need to create progressive succession in our community. Give a chance to the youth. Because what has been happening is we find that for too long, this is with respect, that we find elders holding on to positions and successive progression is not being made. Here we find that the youth are being given that opportunity to become responsible, to show some action. And this was one of the reasons as well why Sayyidina Rasulullah had taken his own 2 grandsons in the Mubahila against the Bani Najran. Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein were small at that time when he took his own family. What was Rasulullah trying to implement into the youth? That at times to come, we need to be responsible. Where are our youth today? I'm standing here on this platform and I'm looking down. I can only see elders. I can only see elders. And Alhamdulillah, I'm sure most of the stories that you heard today, most of our elders know it. Where are our youth? How are they going to be inspired? The question remains, how are they going to be inspired if they don't know about these waqiyas? The story of Karbala is a long one, right? I mean, to try to condense this entire story in 1 hour is impossible, right? And I want to bring about an observation. And this is only an observation. I'm not sure what is happening here, but from where I come, I see a gradual change. I see a gradual change. And my elders are here and they can correct me if I'm wrong. But there was a time when the 10 days of Muharram came, it was only about the zikr of the Ahlul Bayt. The majalis was recited, the zikr of all the great personalities were recited. The focus was Ahlul Bayt. But I see a gradual change. And the gradual change is, I don't know why, right? Then we find the 10 days of Muharram come. As I said, to condense this waqia about each personality, what their sacrifices were, is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, there was a man, right, who only saw an army going. His name was Abdullah. He only saw an army going and he asked, where is this army going? And they said to him, he was in one of the villages where the army was passing. They said to him that this army is going to fight against the grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you know what he said? He went to ask his wife. He said, this army is going to fight against Rasulullah's family. I want to go. The wife said to him, there is no better thing you can do in your life than to go fight for the grandson of Rasulullah. But on the condition, you take me with. We never heard of them. We never heard of these personalities, right? Umayr. So when he got to Karbala, the war just started. They fired arrows. So what happened is, they called on some members from Imam Hussein's camp, Habib bin Mazahir, to come forward to do a duel. Before he could get there, Abdullah bin Umayr, he went in the front. Imam Hussein is asking him, "Bhai, who are you? We don't even know who you are. Who are you?" He says, "Oh Imam Hussein, I just heard that they're coming to fight you, and I came with my wife to help you fight." Imagine, we never heard of him, but they were there. You know what happened when he said this? Imam Hussein said, "Then whatever your niyat is, go ahead." His wife picked up a stick. She ran into the battlefield with her husband. Imam Hussein is asking him, "Who's this?" He said, "This is my wife." He says, "Call your wife back, because we don't allow the women folk to go and fight." They called the wife back, and Abdullah bin Umayr was made shaheed. When he fell down on the ground, the wife runs to him in the battlefield. She wipes his face and he says, "Mubarak to you. Jannat is yours, Jannat is yours, Jannat is yours." This is a wife. And what happens while she's holding her husband? She's also made shaheed. You heard of them? When are we going to talk about them? My question is, when are we going to talk about them? 10 days Muharram come, I request. We are lovers of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. There's no two ways about it. We love Sayyidina Umar Farooq. We love Sayyidina Usman Ghani. We love all the Khulafa Rashidin. We love all the Sahaba. Hajj time comes, we're not talking about anything else except Hajj. 11 nights in Gambia comes, we're only talking about Ghusl Azam. Chatti comes, 6 days, we remember Khaja Gharib Nawaz. My question is, why when it comes to 10 days Muharram, we're talking about every other thing except Karbala? Why are we talking about every other thing except Karbala? This story here requires a lot of time. When are we going to speak about a person by the name of Zuhair bin Kayn? You know about him? Zuhair bin Kayn, I'll tell you about him. Zuhair bin Kayn, he was camped at a place called Zarud. He was coming back from Hajj. He was camped at this place, and Imam Hussein was on his way, and he saw this camp. So he asked somebody, whose camp is this? So he said, "No, this is a person by the name of Zuhair bin Kayn." So Imam Hussein tells him, "Go call the person and come." So Zuhair bin Kayn comes. When he goes back to his tent, you know what Sayyidina Zuhair bin Kayn does? He divorces his wife. He tells his wife, "You must go back to your brother." He sells all whatever goods he has, and he tells them that anybody who wishes now to attain martyrdom, come with me. And if you don't, then please return back home. So the wife got a shock. She asked him, "What happened? You just went out now? What happened?" He says that years ago, we fought a battle. And in that battle, with me was Sayyidina Salman al-Farsi. Sayyidina Salman al-Farsi, from that battle, we received a lot of booty and money, from which we lived comfortably. He says, but after this, Sayyidina Salman al-Farsi told me that a time will come, O Zuhair, that you will meet Imam Hussein. And if you join him and you become a martyr in his cause, it will be better than all the money in the world that you accumulated. So he says, upon this nasihat of Sayyidina Salman al-Farsi, I'm now joining Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala, and I'm going for battle. Have you heard about Zuhair bin Qais? We don't. These are all people who contributing people to the aspects of Karbala. Right? Then we find another person. Right? Hazrat Qais. This was Zuhair bin Qais. The other one is Hazrat Qais radiallahu ta'ala. Who was he? He was sent by Imam Hussein to Kufa while they were traveling for him to bring information back. But Hazrat Qais was captured. When he was captured, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad told him, I want you now to go on the top of the building, of the parliament building, and I want you to stand on the building and insult Imam Hussein and his family. You do that, we'll free you. You don't do that, we'll kill you. Hazrat Qais goes on the top of the building. what he does. He tells the people, "Oh people, Hussein ibn Ali, the beloved of Fatima, is the best of men at present. I've been sent by him to you, and it is compulsory for you to help and obey his call." You know what they do with him? They cut his head, they throw him in the street, they tie his body to horses, and they make the horses take his body through the streets of Kufa, ripping his body apart. These are all people who are contributing factors to Karbala. Now, Karbala, there's a lot of lessons, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, that we need to take account for, right? Then we find, like, for example, the Ahlul Bayt, right? I just want to give you another example. The only male survivor of Karbala was Imam Zainul Abidin. You know what his age was? 22. 22 years old. And he was with his sister, Sayyida Sakina. You know how old she was? Some say 5, some say 6. You know what her level of taqwa was? Sayyida Sakina at the age of 6. You know where they tied her? They tied her on her neck. They tied her on her neck. Now I just want you, you know, when we hear the waqiyas, we don't realize distances. That the Ahlul Bayt were made to walk. So I'm going to give you some of the distances that these personalities were made to walk bare feet in the hot desert sun of Iraq. After Karbala, they were made to go to Kufa. You know the distance from Karbala to Kufa? 79 kilometers. From Kufa to Damascus, 920 kilometers. From Damascus back to Karbala, 845 kilometers. From Karbala back to Medina, 1,346 kilometers, bare feet in the hot desert sun of Iraq. People ask us, why do you want to make a big issue about this? Sayyida Sakina, she was tied. When they came to a place where the soldiers of the Yazidi army were feeling thirsty, they left them in the sun while they rested. Sayyida Sakina took a break. She found a shrub and she went and slipped away in the shrub. Imam Hussein radiallahu son Mubarak is in a spear right in the forefront of the march. His head is in a spear. After the Yazidi army never gave the Ahlul Bayt water, they began to march forward. As they marched forward, the spear carrying the head of Imam Hussein got lodged into the ground. The soldiers tried to dislodge the spear. They couldn't dislodge it. So they come to Imam Zainul Abidin. They ask Imam Zainul Abidin, something totally wrong. The head containing the spear containing your father's head is lodged into the ground. We can't dislodge it. What's the reason? Imam Zainul Abidin told his sister, go in the back and see if all the people of Ahlul Bayt is here. So they started calling out the names. Radiallahu ta'ala was such a personality, so just, that, when he made parda, one of the things he told his son, he said to his son, Umar Farooq, he said, I'm giving you this wasiyat, and this is for all of us, big and small. All of us, this is Umar Farooq. You know what wasiyat he gave his son? He said that the day I pass away, right? He said, don't delay my burial. And do not spend a lot of money on my kafan. Because if I am good, Allah will dress me in the clothes of Jannah. But if I am not good, then you dressing me up very nice is of no accord. Second thing, don't praise me of things which I didn't have. Because Allah is aware of everything. Right? Thirdly, don't make my qabr big. Because if I am good, Allah will expand that qabr to a size that no eye can see. And if I am not worth it, Allah will squeeze me in this qabr. Sayyidina Umar Farooq. Who are we? Who are we? Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala when he made parda, one of the Sahaba decided to see him in a dream. They saw him in a dream. And they saw Sayyidina Umar Farooq perspiring. So the Sahabi asked Sayyidina Umar, "Oh Umar, how are you?" Now Sayyidina Umar Farooq asked him, he said, "Tell me, since I passed away, how many years have passed on earth?" He said to Sayyidina Umar, 12 years. He said that, "Let me tell you, my Hisab Kitab just finished now in front of Allah." He said if it was not for Allah's mercy, even Umar would have been destroyed. Yes, we need to talk about these great figures, but give it in their time. Dedicate this time of Muharram al-Haram to the Ahlul Bayt, and let us rejuvenate this memory of Imam Hussein and the Shuhada of Karbala and all the personalities who fought and gave their life for the Ahlul Bayt. We make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that increases in our hearts love for the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and raise us on the day of Qiyamah in the love of the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه ونور عيشه سيدنا مولانا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Jazakallah, subhanallah, for the informative talk, and it's been really inspiring. I think I've learned a great deal from the discourse, and I hope all of us here have as well. We make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant Naeem Khan Chishty Sabiree and bless him to continue to do the sterling work that he is doing in spreading the teachings of the